Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. This is Chili, this is my road to National Master, and this is my fourth game of uh, the second eliminatory stages of the Brasiliense Clássico. And I've got the black pieces again against a 1917, 1719 rated opponent. You can tell that I'm still getting things mixed backwards. I say G when I mean B, I say A when I mean H, and I say 17. I was meant to say 1970 because I got it backwards, and then I said 1790 because I was getting the backwards, and I got it correct. Wow. Anyways, so my opponent is rated 1790. She is a player which is not from my state, and she was uh, traveling, I think, and she was visiting some family she had, and she just decided to play this tournament. And yeah, so I didn't know her, and she started the game off with d4, and I was like, okay, let's play the knight f6 that we play always. There we go, knight f6 and bishop f4. So straight away, White has shown their cards and has revealed everything. I know what they're going to play. They're going to play the classic London system, which is characterized by 2 bishop f4. And you can also choose not to show your cards, and you can play something like knight f3 on the second move, and then later on play bishop f4, and it may confuse your opponents a bit or get them in some lines which they're not as comfortable with. It really depends on what they play. But they go bishop f4 straight away. And whenever I see this bishop f4, I go d5. And usually I go g6 here. So if they were to play knight to f3, I'd go g6, which would be suboptimal for playing this continuation that I really like. And since they did play the optimal line for me, I was really happy to see this. And they go e3, c5, knight f3, knight c6, c3, and this is where my plan takes effect, basically. So what happens when you play this London system is you move the c1 bishop out really early, and that leaves the b2 pawn weak. So you can tell that it's not defended right now, and so my next move is very logical, and it is queen b6. And the idea of queen b6 is that if they go queen b3, which is very logical, I will push c4, and we get into something more or less along the lines of this. So queen b3, c4, queen takes is only logical, a takes, and now it looks like black is worse because they have doubled pawns, and that is true, we have double pawns, but it is not true that we are worse, because if they continue with something like knight a3, I can go rook a5, and the idea of knight a3 is to stop me from pushing this pawn up, and the idea of rook a5 is to reinvite this idea of pushing. And then bishop c7, e6, bishop takes, rook a6, bishop c5, bishop takes, d takes. This is a possible continuation, but there are some lines where black does manage to get the pawn up. So this would be my theoretical preparation, but I was also prepared for them to make a mistake. And that would look something like, let's just say, bishop e2 looks okay, b5, and then they may notice that I'm trying to push this pawn and try and play a6, but this is a mistake here because I can still push b5 anyway. And I push b4 with the idea that you can't take with the a pawn because the rook hangs, and that means that if you take here, I can just play knight takes, and I'm safe. Because if you take, I take the rook, and it looks good for me. So this was always going to be my plan, to play along the queen side and push my b pawn up. And we don't get into this line. When I play queen b6, they play kind of a mistake. Another possibility here would be to play also b3, and then the continuation will look something like this. C takes, e takes, bishop f5, bishop d3, bishop g6, castles, and e6. So very standard position here. But I do enjoy this position because the c pawn is a bit weak, and it's very natural for my a rook to come to the c8 square, attacking the pawn. So just adding some pressure here. I think this is very good for black. And yeah, I was going to be happy to see this position. Although, when I play queen b6, they play kind of a mistake here, kind of inaccuracy. They go, if my computer loads, there we go. They play, and my game just crashed. So let me just try and open chess base again. Okay. So really? All the way back? Okay, so we were on queen b6 here, if you guys remember correctly. And here in this position, they play a mistake, which was bishop to d3. Now, bishop d3 is a big mistake because in the queen b3 line, my idea was always going to be to push the c4 pawn, to push the pawn c4, and I mean I can still do that and hit the bishop, but that's not it. It's because the idea of queen b3 at least defends the b2 pawn, and in this position, it's not defended. So here I had a long think, because I knew this was wrong. I knew this was a mistake and that the advantage was mine. I was calculating between c4 straight away and bishop to and queen takes b2 straight away. So if you play queen takes b2 straight away, two things can happen. They can play queen d2 or either queen c2, and then I take the rook and they try and trap my queen with castling short. And then whenever the knight moves, it's a discovery on my queen and it's probably lost. Although it still looks pretty good. I mean, I was calculating lines here. Even if I felt like even if I trade my queen for a pawn and two rooks, that would still benefit me slightly. So I thought that that was still going to be a positive line for me. Although I did calculate that c4 is a bit better because whenever you push c4, you're hitting this bishop, and now the bishop has to move to a light square anyway, so there's no way that the bishop can defend the b2 pawn, so it's always going to be lurking in the air. So they go bishop b2, and in this position, I do choose to take the pawn, and I go queen takes b2. I thought this was just a huge bluff, and I was expecting something like queen to d2 now, or knight bd2, but that loses the c3 pawn as well, so yeah, I was really happy with this position. And they play castles first, so I was kind of like unsure if she really knew what she was doing or if she really didn't know what she was doing, but it was definitely going to be to one of those two extremes. So I said, you know what, I'm already not scoring very well in this tournament. Actually I kind of was. I was 2 wins and 1 loss at this point. So I thought, you know what, to hell with it, just take it. And it turns out it was good. So queen takes a1, queen c2, and now my queen is trapped, but this was okay because I saw a continuation here in advance, which looked really good to me, really, really good. And the following move I play here is knight e4, and the idea of knight e4 basically is that the c3 pawn is going to be undefended if the b knight moves. So the idea is that for you to trap my queen and capture it, the b knight has to move. If the b knight does move, my queen has an escape now via taking on c3. So they had to deal with this first, and the only solution I saw and that she saw was to play knight fd2, which is also a common maneuver in the London system. And so I saw this move, and it would have been bad for me because it does kind of solve the problem. Now you can trade off these knights first before you remove your b knight, and that would in fact trap my queen. And it would be good if it worked for white, but unfortunately I had this move that she didn't see, bishop f5. And it looks kind of strange indeed, and I was also kind of like on the fence about my continuation at the beginning because bishop f5 is loose. There's nothing defending the bishop, unless I defend it tactically, which you guys will see will come into play soon. So bishop f5 played on the board, and now the idea again is that if you take my knight, then I'm just going to take for the bishop, and then I hit your queen. It's going to be probably... There's going to be a way for me to escape this. Something like, let's just say knight takes, bishop takes, What does the queen move? If the queen goes back to c1, then I take on a2 and I escape. If the queen goes to d2, then I take the knight with my bishop and I also escape. So this would be very good for me. And she kind of gets into despair mode, like, okay, it's now or never, I lost my rook, so I'm gonna have to make something happen or I'm gonna lose the game. And she goes knight takes c4, which isn't accurate because, like I said, my bishop isn't defended, but I can defend it tactically, which is exactly what I do. I play knight g3 check, hanging the knight two different ways, but kind of not hanging it because the queen is hit over here. So this was a really nice move. And funny thing, her boyfriend was playing this tournament as well. And her boyfriend came to the table right at this moment and he was like, shit, she is so lost. And the funny thing is that next round I play him and that will be a good video. Knight g3 though on the board, and she has to move the queen or block the attack, and she decides to block the attack and goes bishop here. Although this is, again, not the best move because now I can just trade everything off. Like, I'm up material, I'm up a full rook. So in my mind, if I trade everything off through like bishop takes, queen takes, pawn takes, queen goes back, I think it would be better to take the pawn actually. Again, I can just take the other rook now, and tactically, I feel like this works out for me. And now the game has kind of lost a bit of that super fast pace and it's a bit slower to play. So now I feel like I should just develop my pieces, get my king castle, bring my bishop into the game. So I go e6, and she goes king f2, king e2, sorry. And now I'm starting to think maybe I went a little bit crazy with this thought process that I had, but I'm really, I am happy with it. I think it was a pretty cool move, and so I was thinking, what's her plan here? How can she ever trap my queen? Because really, realistically, that's all she has. She can only trap my queen here, and that's basically it. So how does she do that? Probably by playing something like e4, which gains central space, bishop c1, moving the knight out, taking this pawn, bringing the knight to d2, and then playing knight b3. Of course, that's super slow. Probably never gonna work, but hey, that was the plan. So I thought I should just stop that immediately, the e4 advance, because even if she doesn't go for that continuation, e4 is still a good move for her, I feel. So I go f5 here. I was prepared to face e4 straight away. I calculated this out and it looked good for me. And she goes f3, which supports the e4 push. So okay, I'm not sure if she did calculate this or if she's going to play like bishop c1 to b2 straight away, which hangs the a2 pawn, maybe, possibly, but f3 kind of hints that she was looking at this, so that was kind of good. Bishop b7 now by me. d5, trying to break open the position. Again, I was fine with this. I'm not afraid of not castling here just because everything is just so loose, and once she does take my pawn, which she does, she takes on f5, now my queen escapes, and this just seems winning for me. So queen b2, check, knight blocks the check, queen takes c3, and now queen a6, which, okay, kind of makes sense, but you're not dealing with the major problem here, and actually queen to e6 stops defending the d3 square, so I just give this check, king e1, c3, pushing the knight away again with tempo, and everything in my position is fine and defended. There's no way for her to win this. Like my e7 bishop is defended by my knight, so there's no tactics there with like bishop to g5, it just doesn't exist. And then she goes this e4, which is a huge blunder. So here I get the chance to play a really nice move. I play knight d4, threatening checkmate in one and also hitting the queen. So you have to choose between the two, and she chooses the third option, which is ff15. she just resigns here in this position, and yeah, I win this game pretty nicely, I'd say. So this was a great game by me. I'm really proud of this game personally, and yeah, this was how I faced the London system. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys learned something, and I'll see you guys in the next round. Bye.